all over agriculture policy for decades now. My friends the Emkes have related that around their grain bin that and around the Gove County area, he's known as the Rotund Hun, even though he's no longer rotund. Legend has it that Barry's ancestors immigrated to the United States as Hessian missionaries in the Revolutionary War. Of course, the truth doesn't matter so much as it's a good story. Also, I understand that Barry studied under Earl Butz, a former Secretary of Agriculture. And I understand from Vance and Louise that they asked Earl what he thought of Barry. And he said, "Oh yeah, Flinchbaugh. He's that ag economist who has become increasingly accurate at predicting the past." And then there's another farmer friend of mine that said that Barry Flinchbaugh is the only ag economist in the entire country whose hat size is bigger than his shoe size. Now, I have many memories of working with Barry on various issues and in various ways over the years. We worked several years with Governor Carlin's ag group, and I recall pretty vividly one trip to Topeka. It was a blizzard, one of those really strong Kansas blizzards in the winter, and we were to get to Topeka and update the governor and some others in terms of the progress his ag working group was making. So even though the interstate was closed, we decided we were going to get there anyway. So we turned off down some country roads in the Flint Hills, and we didn't know where we were, and we didn't know where we were going. And then when we got to Topeka, finally, the governor kind of thought the same thing about our progress in the agriculture working group. So there was a little bit of a connection there. I do want to say that certainly it's been enjoyable, for example, to hear Barry's recollection of Harry Truman and his family, and I certainly hope that he does write that book someday, because those are fascinating parts of history. But one of the things that I would mention in regard to that is, as you know, Truman's slogan was, "The buck stops here." Barry, kind of changed that just a little bit, and his slogan is, "The cigar butt stops here." Well, I do appreciate the opportunity to spend a few minutes here. Barry has been a great friend over the years. I've enjoyed working with him. We've got a great relationship, not only in agriculture policy and all of those kinds of things, but we've had some life experiences that not everybody has that kind of has made our relationship even more special. So, Barry, thank you so much.
Thank you for those comments, Adrian. You studied under Earl Butz? I was sure it was Benjamin Franklin. Our next speaker, Dr. John Weefald of Kansas State, and Dr. Weefald is, like a lot of us, in something of a conundrum for tomorrow. If our Cats beat Missouri, that gives Kansas the North Division title. The apocalypse is surely here. Dr. John Weefald.
Say, Eric's done a nice job tonight, hasn't he? Let's give him a big hand. Actually, I think you're better looking and smarter than Barry. Oh, didn't you see how handsome he was as Barry up here?
It'll never happen.
Hey, keep it up, Barry. And how about Jack Lindquist? I mean, My Way, Frank Sinatra? Has this guy got a great voice or what? Huh? Woo! By the way, I started thinking about this so-called roast a couple of weeks ago, and I just started thinking of various points that I could make in the speech tonight. The many, many successes of Barry Flinchbaugh over the years. Well, why is it I got everything on a 3x5 card? Come on, get your hand up there. Well, today has been an agricultural day for me. This afternoon at 1 o'clock, I was one of the speakers because the College of Agriculture was announcing that not one, but 2 K-State students had become national FFA elected leaders for 07-08. 2 out of 6. I mean, that is unbelievable, isn't it? And then I'm thinking to myself, has Barry Flinchbaugh ever been the president of the FFA, even in his own county? Huh? I mean, come on, Barry. We got 2 students today that made it to the very top of the FFA. And so there were many faculty and staff and very brilliant students there today. And they asked where I was going. I said, well, we're going to go talk about Barry Flinchbaugh. And they said, Barry, who? And then several said, why? When I came to Kansas State back in 1986, and by the way, we played horrible football in 1986. We were in the midst of a 27-game losing streak. And I had so many things I had to do to turn around Kansas State. Football was not in my top 10. But anyway, I come to Kansas State on July 1 of 86. And like a couple weeks later, there are farmers in front of Waters Hall protesting Barry Flinchbaugh. I'm thinking, now that is one hell of an introduction to Kansas. And so I'm thinking, why would these farmers be protesting against Barry Flinchbaugh? Well, immediately I thought of William Allen White. What in the wide world of sports is wrong with Kansas? Why would they be protesting one of our professors? Well, I got to know Barry in the next couple of months, and then it dawned on me, I know what's the matter with Kansas. Well, actually, as I got to be friends with Barry in the next year, like several of the people have said tonight, I mean, deep down, he's very modest and very, very shy. And I'm not kidding you. I mean, shy, modest, and then I thought about that quote from Winston Churchill. See, he's the great wartime president or Labor Party minister, Conservative Party minister of Great Britain throughout World War II. One of the great leaders in our history. And then in 1945, the British voters dumped him and put it Clement Attlee, who nobody has ever heard of since. Well, someone asked him one time about Clement Attlee, and then I started thinking about Barry Flinchbaugh. Winston Churchill said, he is a modest man with much to be modest about. But, the problem with doing this with Barry is it's just too easy. Watch it, I got new shoes on. Should Eric go into the business of impersonating people or what? Where in the wide world of sports did he get that hairdo? From Jack. But listen, I tell you what. We are playing the University of Missouri before. Hell, I should be back in Manhattan getting our players fired up. What in the hell am I doing here? This is a big game tomorrow. And by the way, I don't care if it means that KU wins the Big 12 North. I don't know about you. We still want to beat Missouri tomorrow. Hey, I have to tell you this. Mark Mangino is a good friend of mine. He worked for me for 8 years. Good coach, good recruiter. I knew he was going to do good things. Now, look, it took him 6 years to get the KU football act together. Our guy's only in his second year. Gary Pinkel, 8 years, 7 years to get a good team at Missouri. So just give us a little time here. You can write this down right now. We will get it done. We will return to being a national power in football. Period. Amen. Good night. Okay? We will get it done. Just count on it. Well, I got to get you fired up here. But this is so easy for me. I mean, Barry is a dear friend of mine. You got to understand that. He's like a brother. You know, Barry and I have gone through the wars together now for over 20 years. And, of course, it's so much fun to be here tonight with farmers, ranchers, people in the agribusiness community and in small town, medium-sized town banking. You know, as I look around, I see so many old friends that, you know, I don't necessarily see around every week or every month. But you know what I can't believe is how many people are here to toast Barry Flinchbaugh. I didn't realize you had this many friends. No, but I mean, these are really good friends now. I'm telling you what, they're the kind of friends you can go to war with. But I do thank you so much for coming. You know, here's the deal about Barry Flinchbaugh. I mean, when it comes to ag policy, I mean, he's supremely brilliant. You know that. I mean, one of the best in the country. One of the very, very best thinkers when it comes to agricultural/farm policy in these United States of America. So we know that. I mean, so, you know, in my mind, Barry Flinchbaugh is a scholar. I mean, he is a scholar. He's a thinker. He's a critic. He's got a very cerebral mind. Now, but what has really put Barry over the top at Kansas State is not so much his scholarship and his knowledge of farm policy and all the rest. It's his teaching. I mean, look, K-State's in business to educate the best and the brightest students in Kansas. I mean, really, to open our doors to all students, poor or rich. I mean, we're a land-grant university. We're there to help young people realize their dreams. We're there because we're a quintessential example of what America's all about. You know, we believe in America. We believe that you can be nobody one day and somebody the next. We know that in America, that if you dream big dreams and work hard, you can go right to the top. The thing that makes Barry so special in the classroom and when he's giving lectures to people around the state is that he does this with passion. You know, it's like, you know, in life, whatever you're doing, you have to bring passion to the enterprise. It's all about being respectful to people, believing in people, and knowing they can get it done, and just lifting them up. And when Barry Flinchbaugh teaches Ag Policy 101, he's taking people from the farms and the ranches and the small towns of Kansas, and I'll tell you what, he's performing miracles. He's getting people to believe in themselves. He's getting these young people to realize that they too can do it, that they can become special. And so I can't tell you how many students that I've run into that took classes from Barry Flinchbaugh, that became the president of their fraternity or sorority, that became the student body president, that became some of our top scholarship winners, because Barry got them to believe in themselves. I'll tell you what, I am thrilled to be here. He is like a blood brother to me. He has helped make my years at K-State so extraordinary. And I want to thank each and every one of you for coming to Wichita, Kansas, to help us for a brief period of time celebrate the life of one of K-State's best and brightest, Barry Flinchbaugh. God bless you. Go K-State!
Thank you very much, Dr. Weefald, and indeed, go Cats, indeed. Our next presenter is the Dean of the College of Agriculture and the Director of Extension at Kansas State University, Dr. Fred Cholick. Fred, how long have you been here? 3 years, right. 3 years ago, Kansas State went after a new dean and pursued this gentleman from South Dakota very hard. He was reluctant at first to accept a position here. He had reservations. Shortly after this pursuit began, Barry Flinchbaugh retired from Extension. The very next day, Dr. Cholick took the deanship at Kansas State University. Coincidence? I think not. Fred Cholick.
Thank you, Eric. That was no coincidence. Let me kind of start, as President Weefel indicated, I can't talk with that thing in my mouth, indicated, I've been asking a number of people, because actually I've known Barry a little bit longer than the 3 years, to provide me information. I'm going to show this to Eric. This is what they've given me, Eric. It's blank. But one person tonight gave me one piece of information, and it's rather shocking. And I found out from an individual whose first name's Shirley, I'm not going to use her last name to keep the innocent here, is that Barry Flinchbaugh is a closet Jayhawk. Now, I'm just repeating what I heard, so don't. So with getting no information, I figured I got to start somewhere. So being the dean and academics, and as President Weefel said about students, I really thought I should start with his academic accomplishments. So I went upstairs on the 3rd floor in Waters Hall and asked for his files, and I got the files, and I really wanted to make sure I had all his accomplishments down so I could give them to you tonight. I wrote them on this piece of paper, right here, Barry. And what is that, Barry? It's blank too, okay. Moving on to the next topic. An unknown fact about Barry is he's an avid hunter, particularly turkey hunter. And he's adventured into some other hunting experiences, and we all know that he's an ag economist. And so some of his friends at K-State said, let's go moose hunting. Barry had never done that, and he figured, well, that'd be a lot of fun. And it happened to be that he was moose hunting with a mathematician, a statistician, and of course Barry was the ag economist. Well, they're up in the tundra going around and around and around and not seeing anything. And finally, out there at about 200 yards, this absolutely fabulous, biggest moose anybody's seen stood up. Well, the mathematician got his slide rule and did a whole lot of calculations, and he shot exactly 6 inches behind the moose. And so the statistician got out and ran a whole bunch of assumptions and shot exactly 6 inches in front of the moose. And you know what Barry did? He threw his arms up in the air and says, "We got him! We got him!" So that's his claim to fame in ag economics anyway. So the other thing, I guess, is that I've had a chance to travel with Barry a little bit. And actually, I did know Barry before I came down. And one of the things you find out about Barry Flinchbaugh is he knows everyone. I mean, that's a known fact. Barry just kind of knows everyone. So we were traveling in Oakley, and we stopped for lunch in the Oakley Cafe. How many been in the Oakley Cafe? Okay, raise your hand, Barry. Thank you. And I sit down to eat lunch, and no Flinchbaugh. Oh, he's visiting with the farmer there. So I says, Barry, do you really, this was right after I got here, do you really know everyone in Kansas? And he says, yes. And I was brand new. He says, I know the governor. I said, well, prove it to me. So we went to Topeka, and sure enough, he asked to meet the governor, went in, had a good chat, sit there. And so he says, I know everyone. So it proceeded on. I said, well, I prove this. He says, well, I know President Bush. And so we flew to Washington, D.C., and sure enough, he got an appointment. We got up, and he had a great chat with the president. And I said, you really don't know everyone. And I says, do you know the Pope? And he said, sure. So we fly to Rome, go to the Vatican. Place is crowded, and we're there, and kind of in the back. And he says, well, he can't wave at me from here. So he says, I got to get up there. And so he kind of gets up and gets on the balcony and standing there visiting with the Pope. And this guy pokes me in the ribs. And he says, do you know that guy standing next to Barry Flinchbaugh? So I guess I've had to come to the conclusion that he knows everyone. The other thing is Barry is retired, sort of. I want to put this completely to rest. Barry is retired, but we've hired him back on a 25% appointment to teach that class and the great job he does with the students. And the other 5% is to kind of work with extension and service. And in my 3 years, I have learned one thing. Great to work with, but don't exceed the 5%. I can't afford him, President Weefel. I just can't afford to pay the bill. The other thing I think, and this actually came to me from some of my banker friends in South Dakota, and I think when I looked at the record, really, I think you've given over 3,000 talks. I think, is that close? Okay. And it absolutely amazes me. Barry Flinchbaugh will walk into a room of 100 people. He'll insult 99 of them repeatedly. 98 will invite him back, and they will pay him more. And I tell you, he is the only person I've ever met that has that set of credentials, without question. Well, let me close, I guess, and I am going to be a little serious. When I became dean at Kansas State, one of the individuals that came down to talk to me was Barry Flinchbaugh. And we visited 4 or 5 times now. We've driven all the way across the state, and my wife's still suffering from the smell of the cigars in my vehicle. But anyway, together, and as all you have known Barry longer than I have, I consider him a very, very good friend. But more importantly, I consider him a mentor. And most importantly, I consider him a teacher. And he is very good at that. And for that, Barry, I thank you. Yep.
Thank you very much, Fred. Now we're going to turn it over to the ringleader of this whole thing, the president of Carl, Jack Lindquist, and he's going to impart a few thoughts, I'm understanding. Jack.
Barry, I've saved this up for a long time. I could talk all night about the experiences together with you with the Carl program, like the meeting you called in 1989 that brought together all of the ag leadership in the state, the majority anyway, that we needed an endorsement to start the Kansas Agriculture and Rural Leadership Program. And we got it from that meeting, but I won't spend much time talking about that. Or the visit that you made to my office in Lawrence to encourage me to apply for the director's position. That was 18 wonderful years ago. But I won't talk about that. I won't talk about the trip to Germany that we took with Class 1. Class 1 members, raise your hands. That trip to Germany where I saved your life. I had you throw away a slab of ribs you had tucked under your arm the night before you were out to dinner, and you had ribs with a faculty member's son that was in Germany. And you were going to snack on those during the bus tour of East Berlin. But to my shock, they hadn't been refrigerated. You said, but they've been cooked. Well, I saved your life that day when I threw those away, and you had the sorriest look on your face when you lost a half a slab of ribs. Or the Class 2 trip to Western Europe where we were in England, and you were wearing slippers the last 3 days of the trip because we wore your feet out. You couldn't keep up with the pace of the Carl class. But Senator Fred Kerr reminded me of the feathers that you sent home in his luggage so that when Nancy unloaded his suitcase, she would find feathers from the Moulin Rouge. And Senator Kerr would like you to have those feathers back. I would gladly, though, tell everyone that those fireside chats that you had with each of the Carl classes, 1 through, and it will include 9, have the members on the edges of their seats contemplating the impact of every option you share. I will tell everyone that we've had 270 participants in the Carl program to date, and they've benefited from their 2-year Carl training, and they've been from 93 Kansas counties. We've taken farmers, agribusiness representatives, and economic development specialists to 17 countries over the past 8 classes to see how other cultures and political structures advance their agricultural industries, something that nearly 6 billion people on this earth don't have the luxury of doing. I'll tell everyone that we have raised $3 million to date for a curriculum that has components emulated in 36 other states, 3 Canadian provinces, Australia, and New Zealand. Think back, this started with a meeting that you had in the K-State Union in 1989. I'll make certain that everyone knows that our graduates are on school boards, extension councils, advisories, and boards from border to border, and they're serving others for the sake of bettering the quality of life for all Kansans. We've even had alumni at the top leadership roles of Kansas Farm Bureau, the National Association of Wheat Growers, the Kansas Livestock Association, and many other commodity boards. And don't forget those elected to our county commissions and those elected to the Kansas legislature. Our alumni are involved with boards, cooperatives, and organizations that are adding millions in value-added opportunities to the Kansas economy through ethanol plant projects, major dairy operations, grain terminals, and mills. And most importantly, Barry, I'll tell them you've been a mentor, a friend, a policy guru. In fact, you're the Yoda of policy. And the best damn godfather a leadership program could ever have. And now you've lent us your names so that our future is better insured through the growth of an endowment fund. Thank you for all you've done and for all you'll continue to do for the Carl program, the premier ag leadership program, bar none. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Well, now, Fred referred to this a bit ago. I know many of you here tonight are former students of Professor Flinchbaugh. Some that may have never had that opportunity, though, to be in Barry's class are here as well. So, tonight, as a refresher course for you former students, and for a brief experience for those of you who have never attended a day in the class of Ag Policy 410, Professor Flinchbaugh, your class awaits. Professor Flinchbaugh.
By the age of this bunch, I can see you've all had trouble graduating. I got my work cut out for me. This job doesn't pay enough. Keep your eye on that. The economist didn't be telling me there's some good chewing left yet. Are you with anybody tonight? I got an itch and it just needs scratched. This is Ag Policy 401. Now, if any of you are here in the wrong class, I recommend that you stay, because you'll learn more in this class than any other damn class on campus. Now, I also know that other college over there also has an ag policy class across the way. Now, if some of you think you know all there is to know about ag policy, forget every damn thing they taught you. They don't know what the hell they're talking about over there. In this class, we tell it like it is. We talk turkey. We talk about the Farm Bureau, the KLA, the Farmers Union, and all those other commodities. And when you get through, you will know where little babies come from. Speaking of little babies, reminds me of a story. When John Weefalt first come to this university, I pulled him to the side. I told him there was 3 things that he needed to learn to be a successful president. First, a winning football team. May have to talk to you about that one again. Number 2, plenty of faculty parking. And number 3, safe sex for the students. When I first arrived in this state, my first objective was to visit all 105 counties. And then my second objective was to get to know all the county agents. Whenever you get in trouble on campus, if you have the support of the counties, you will be fine. But you can't believe the egghead professors that have never figured that out yet. Now, my schedule will require me not to be here at every class. So when I'm not here, my secretary is in charge. And beware, she's a lot tougher than I am. Which reminds me of a story. When I first came to this campus, I had a secretary that liked to sleep in the bathroom. One day, I had a lot of dictation to do. Couldn't find her. Nobody would say where she was, but I knew. So I walked down 3rd floor hall, took a right, and I knocked on the women's John door. Nobody answered. I just went ahead and walked right on in. Sure enough, there she was, sleeping. Well, by the time I was through with her, she was writing on the wall. The next day, I was looking for a new secretary. When I first arrived here in Manhattan, I needed a house. I went from bank to bank to bank. Turned down every one of them. I walked into the First National Bank, manned by Al Hotstetler, owned the bank. I just walked right into his office. I said, "My name is Barry Flinchbaugh, and all I've got's a job and a cat named Harry Truman." Turned out he's a Democrat, and I got the loan. Later, I had the privilege of serving on his bank board. Now, when I had a situation about getting in trouble on campus, I had a student. He worked for the Collegian. One day in class, I was talking about a certain USDA official whose name escapes me. And he was incompetent. And since this is a class that tells it like it is, I said so. Next day, front page, Collegian. Professor Barry Flinchbaugh says so-and-so is incompetent. Oh, all hell broke loose. The dean was calling, the university president was calling. Oh, I had a mess. But my father always taught me to always own up to your words, and I couldn't deny it. But the next day, that certain student and I had a heart-to-heart in my office. I tried to explain to him that in the discourse of education, the free flow of discussion is a learning tool. He gave me all that damn journalism BS that they teach over there in that journalism school about the freedom of speech. Well, I just had about all I could take of that. And that's when that student learned about nut cutting. Are you taking notes on this, Spiegel? For those of you who are not animal science majors, let me explain this to you as delicately as I may. Over here, we have a bull. And over here, we have a steer. And here we have a nut cutter. I leaned over the desk and looked at that student and I said, "Just what is it that you want? An F or a passing grade?" That's when that student learned about how public decisions are made. I mentioned my cat, Harry Truman. I've always cherished history, particularly presidential history. What you can learn from history is invaluable. I've always felt that George Washington was our greatest president. But in recent times, I would pick Harry Truman. Why Harry? Because he told it like it was. He didn't need polls. He didn't need handlers. He didn't need focus groups. When he left office, his approval rating was 22%. And today, both Democrat and Republican alike will admire him for his integrity and his decisions. I happen to believe there's a lot of similarities between Harry Truman and George Bush. In 1972, this country had the poorest choice of presidents in its history to pick from. We had to choose between a crook, Nixon, and an idiot, McGovern. I voted for the crook. And if I had to do it all over again, I'd still vote for the crook. You can rehabilitate a crook. You can't do a damn thing with an idiot. Can't take your eyes off of it, can you? The cigar has always been my trademark. Started smoking them when I was in high school. Have to chew them today. I have a good friend in Pennsylvania that owns a factory. Sends me all his seconds. Cost me about 30 cents a piece, but don't tell my wife. She thinks I get them for free. This cane. I was in a car wreck in Colorado about 1.5 years ago. Hurt my back. Lost my shingles. Best damn prop I ever come up with. You know when you're waiting to get on the airplane, where they let the little kids and the people who need help on first? I just show them this cane, they let me ride on. Don't know why I didn't think of it 30 years ago. I've led a privileged life. I've traveled the world. I've sat with presidents. I chaired a national commission on the future of ag policy, farm policy. I've had a wheelbarrow full of manure delivered to my office front door, and I've been burned in effigy. That tells me that I must have made a difference. But I want you to know something tonight, that all of that doesn't mean as much to me as the 3,000 plus students that have passed through my class. I don't know exactly what it is. I can't put it exactly into words. But there is something about watching a young mind that wants to learn and seeing the expression that they've got it that sustains me. As most of you know, me personally, I have not been without tragedies in my life. A brother died of an early age of cancer, and a son to an immune deficiency disorder. I've been asked, how did you cope? How did you handle it? The short answer, laughter. Laughter. When we take ourselves too serious, when the tragedies of life come along, we will not be able to handle them. Now, we're going to have some laughter in this class. And if you come to class and you study hard, you will pass. And that is our objective. The time is coming when I will not always be able to teach this class. And so the secret to my teaching is that with laughter, you will have fun learning. And what you have fun learning, you will retain all the days of your life. And my last secret, that if any of you ever repeat, I will make a liar out of you. I know my reputation as outspoken and flamboyant, but that's not quite entirely accurate, because you see, at the heart of it, I'm really a sentimental old fool that just loves to teach. Class dismissed.
Let's give it up one more time for Jay Armstrong. Outstanding. It's hard to follow that. Terrific, Jay. Just terrific. Our next presenter comes to us from Winfield, Kansas originally. I might note that this is the cradle of excellence. The city has produced many, many outstanding leaders in such areas as farm broadcasting. Kendall has not only known Barry for a long time, but he is now a next-door neighbor in the mountains. Good luck. Kendall Frazier.
You know, that is a hell of a hard act to follow by Jay. Boy, it was good to get out of Colorado today. I live in Denver, and I suffer every day under